Hi and welcome to PolyOriginals with Fiona Abel-Smith. Today I thought we'd have a go at this fun little pendant. It's very, very simple to do and I'll take you all the way through it, including how to do the beading around the outside. I call this one the Striped Illusion Pendant, and we are going to do a very simple skinner blend and take advantage of the stripes that happen in a skinner blend. Maybe like me, when you've been making skinner blends, when the stripes are just starting to come, you think, oh, that's quite pretty. And we're going to do a little technique to take advantage of that. We're then going to create this illusion where the stripes change direction and insert some beads. And the whole point of this one is that when you're wearing it, it looks as though the beads go all the way through and are held in place by the polymer. I love it when you can use polymer with other things, because it bakes at such a low temperature, of course, you can add loads of things in. So let's get going with this one, and I'll take you through what you need for the project. So the tools we need for this one aren't too bad at all, just the general tools you'll probably have if you're a polymer clay worker. Tissue blade to cut down through the clay, craft knife, we're going to use that to cut round stuff, a cutter, and then because we've got a cutter and it's sharp both sides, I just have a piece of hardboard so that when I press down, I use that to press down on the cutter so I protect my hands. A little bit of greaseproof or baking parchment, something to work on, and nothing too fancy in that. Some form of texture sheet. This is just a bit of the sponge stuff you get in packing boxes, so just a very thin sheet of that. Tile to work on and bake on. A nice big clay roller, doesn't have to be that big, but it's handy for what we're doing. I use a blunt-ended knitting needle. We're only going to use the very end of this today, so something that's going to be able to create a nice small groove, whatever you've got to hand will work. A clay beading needle, or just a thin piece of wire or some form of needle that's big enough that you can bead through afterwards. It's going to create a channel for us. A little bit of liquid clay. I've just decanted my liquid clay into a pot. All brands are equally good for this. And then a small paintbrush with which to apply it. And then the beads. These are seed beads, they're size 9. I'm using these ones only because they match the colours I'm going to be using in the design today. Any colour and any size from 15s up to sort of probably about 8s. Any bigger than 8s and you're going to have a bit of a problem, but 15s up to size 8s will be fine, any of your seed beads. And then just some beading thread and a beading needle. And that's it. So let's see which clay we're using and get on with the project. Now the clay for today's session, you don't need very much. I've just taken remnants of bits of clay I've been using. Simply choose whichever colours you have to hand which you think will go nicely together. I'm working Female Soft. Again, all brands work well for this technique. I've got plum, raspberry, peppermint and lilac, and I've just put a little bit of white in between them just to give us a mix-up of the stripe that we're going to create. And there's a very small amount, it's about 1/8 of a packet of these and about 1/16 of a packet of those. So very, very little in the way of clay. All we're going to do, we are simply going to push them together. Take our roller, roll them together and put them through the pasta machine. It's going to go through the pasta machine that way in, so down that way from the top, and I'm going to put this through on setting number 2 on my machine, where 1 is the thickest and 9 is the thinnest. So there we go, through once. All I'm going to do now is I'm going to fold it top to bottom, but just skew it slightly. So can you see there where I've moved it over? So that we are going to get a mix of all those colours are going to be overlapping. You can see there where it's skewed slightly. Put it back through the pasta machine, same setting, number 2. And this time I'm folding it up flat so the sides meet. Same thing again, number 2. And I'm just going to repeat this a couple more times until I start getting a nice blend going through. Okay, so I put it through another 5 times, and we can see there our stripes are starting to come together nicely. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it flat on my tile that way round. And I'm going to get my tissue blade. I'm going to chop off the messy bits on either side. And actually, anywhere you've got a large expanse of a single colour, chop that off. So I'm going to chop off probably a little tad more of that purple, lilac and tad more of the purple. Put those to one side and then start chopping thin slices. So I'm going in the same direction that the stripes are going at the moment. And I'm going to take them off to one side and I'm going to alternate. So I'm going to start working from the other ends and put it back together, but in a different way. So we've got the colours going right across our piece, but mixed up from where they were previously. If when you're doing yours you find that one colour comes out too close to the next one, just mix them up. It doesn't have to be exact like that. Put them together in any way you think looks nice. Give them a bit of a roll, because we are now going to flip these up and over. And again, when you flip them up, you're going to want to skew it ever so slightly so those slices don't fall apart when you put them through the pasta machine. So having done that, back through the pasta machine, through that way, setting number 2 again, and we'll just do that a couple of times and see what we've got. So what I'm looking for is where we start to get all the different colours coming through the layers of the clay we put through. So look on both sides, make sure you've got the pattern coming through on both sides, and when you've reached a point you're happy with, all I'm going to do is I'm going to take my cutter, place it down on a part of the pattern that I think looks nice, checking that both the front and the back look good at that point. I'm going to use my board to chop down on, save my fingers, pull the excess away, and with this same cutter go back and just take out a little ellipse. And now if you turn that round the other way, you'll find that the pattern goes the other way around. So that's what we're looking for, a pattern where the stripes go one way and then twist to the other. So we now need a little bit of backing clay. You can either use the leftover bits of your stripes there, or if you've got some of the cut-offs we had earlier, I'm going to put those back through my pasta machine with a few extra bits of scrap that I've got from something I did earlier with similar colour schemes. So mix this together to create one new colour. And I'm doing that by putting it through the pasta machine, and each time I put it through I fold the sides to middle and put it back through that way so the folds are always on the sides. Each time it comes through, sides to middle, put back through so the folds are at the sides. Sides to middle, put back through, folds at the sides. And by doing that you end up with one nice new, brand new colour. So I'm going to put that back through the pasta machine on setting number 3. And using my bit of baking parchment, I'm going to put that on the bottom and carefully lay just the bottom bit on top. I'm now going to find the beading needle. So this is the clay beading needle, and I'm going to set it down so that it runs completely level with the top of that ellipse. Press it gently into place, but not so hard down that it's going to go through the bottom level of your clay. Take your top piece, set it on top, almost but not quite touching your bottom piece. And now with the tip of your knitting needle, just create a little groove. And you need to make this the size that your beads are going to be, because they are going to sit inside there. I like at this stage just to give my whole piece a bit of texture. So I'm just going to press down with the sponge, give it a nice texture. I'm then going to put, because we've pressed it and manipulated, I'm going to put the ring, the cutter back on top. Press fractionally down just to give me a cutting mark. And now by hand, with a craft knife, go round the outside edge to give myself a nice edge. You need to avoid the bits where the needle are. So go either side of the needle first. And now you can cut round by turning the paper, not your craft knife, and following the line, cutting through all the layers of where your cutter would be. Up to the needle, coming around the other side, going over the top, and come back round, and hopefully you should find that your clay pulls away on either side. If when you look you haven't gone back, and I can see now, I couldn't see in the light, I need to go back in and go closer in. So that's where the line of the cutter was. Never be afraid about going back and doing something a second time if it hasn't gone right first time. That's better. There we go. Okay. So now there's our piece with the line in it. We should be able to peel it off the greaseproof paper very gently. Chop down either side to take the excess clay away from where the needle is. And this is the stage at which you need to very gently twist the needle. You need to be able to remove that at a later stage. If you want to, pull it out completely one side. Take away any mess you might have. Repeat on the other side. Take away any mess. I'm holding it incredibly gently whilst I'm doing that so as not to disturb the texture pattern we've got on already. And then what we need to do is to find our tile to bake on, and we'll put it on our tile to bake so it's in situ for baking before we put our beads on. So here's our tile. I'm just going to go back in, make sure I've got that channel nicely marked. The whole point is the channel needs to come exactly where your needle comes out to create this illusion that the necklace, the beads for the necklace are going to go all the way round through your piece. Once you're happy, string some beads on your thread. It's better to have too many than too few. You can always pull them off the side. Put it up and see how you're doing for the amount you've got on. And when you're happy, take your small paintbrush and your liquid clay and put a whole load of clay in the groove. Don't worry about putting too much at this stage. We can take the excess off with a wet wipe afterwards. Just put quite a bit of clay on there, of liquid clay, because this is what's going to hold the beads in place once it's baked. And once that's done, holding your beads nice and stiff, I've got hold of them either end of my fingers, lay them in place. I start with the middle, work out to one side, and then repeat on the other side. And you can press them down quite firmly into the clay, because that will give you a better idea as to how many you need. So I'm going to take that one off, and hopefully you should get them so they just about fit on. When you're happy that you've got the right amount in place, pull the thread clear. Give your needle a little bit of a tug backwards and forwards just to make sure that that beading channel is still clear later. If you've got any excess liquid clay, take it off. If you've disturbed your texture, just go and put a little bit back on. Make sure the beads are nicely sat in place, and your piece is ready to bake. Bake as per according to the manufacturer's instructions for the brand of clay you are using, and I'll bring you back when we start beading and putting the whole thing together. So here's our finished piece out of the oven, all ready to be put together in the necklace. I have got a couple of culottes. These are little findings which hold the seed bead in place at the far end. A couple of jump rings and a lobster clasp. I've got my needle threaded with double amount of beading thread, and this is fresh thread, not the one that's got liquid clay on it from earlier. I've got 2 pairs of pliers just to help me open the jump rings when I'm finished beading. I've got the beads that I used to go around the pendant, and then a contrasting colour. And all I'm going to do to start with is take one of these seed beads. I've got about 2 meters of thread doubled up, so about a metre or a yard length when it's doubled up, and I'm just tying a knot around that bead, and then we go through the inside of the culotte with a little hole just in the middle there, pull all the way up, and our seed bead sits nicely inside the culotte there. I'm going to bead this in a very simple way. I'm going to do 10 of the blue beads, 4 of the purple, and then I'm going to make a little pattern with the purple and come back and repeat and repeat and repeat. So I'll do the first one for you slowly, and then we'll start to speed up. So take on 10 beads. I should have mentioned as well, I'm working here on a beading mat. It just holds the beads nicely. As you can see there, they just slipped nicely onto my needle as I put the needle up next to them. If you haven't got a beading mat, a piece of fleece material works really well, because it'll just hold the beads nicely for you. So I've got 10 of the blue ones, 4 of the purple, and I'm going to pull them right down to the end of the thread, making sure I've got no excess. Hold it tight over your finger, and I'm going to go back up through the first 3 of those purple beads. Okay. Pull the thread tight, and then I'm going to push those beads back down, and it just creates a little sort of square or diamond pattern. And I'm going to repeat that all the way down till I get to the start of the pendant. When you've got to a stage that you're happy with the length you've got, and we'll say one of the reasons I like this one is it gives this little sort of zigzag look to the necklace, you can either add another couple of blue beads, or see what it looks like to go straight through from the purple. So I think it's going to look nice just to have that little purple block on the side. So what I'm going to do now is repeat. So the first thing, rather than putting any blue on, this time I need to put 4 little purple ones on. Same thing as before, go up through the last 3, push that back down so it's nice and tight. And that's another reason why I like this technique, because you can push it nice and tight as you're going. And now I'm simply going to repeat, adding the same 10 blue, 1 purple, all the way up, finishing with just 10 blue on the end before I get to the culotte the other side. And I know as well that I just have to count the amount of times I've got it to add the same amount of beads on. So having beaded all the way up the other side, I'm now going to go from the outside in to the culotte through that hole in the middle, so the needle comes up on the inside. Add 1 seed bead, and then I'm going to go back through just that seed bead, going up in the other direction, and then you can bring that back down your wire, or the thread rather, And if you pull the two bits apart, you can actually get that nicely centred down in. Check at that point that all your beading thread has been nicely collected, and then hopefully you've got a bit more left at the end of your needle than I have. It's slightly trickier when you've got a small amount, but cut through one only of the threads, then go back up through that bead, and now you can remove the needle and just do a knot in those two sides of the thread. And that's one of the reasons why I like doing double threads, because it makes tying off at the end very easy. A couple of goes round, just straightforward knot. And there we go. So that's mainly more or less finished. What I would need to do now is to close up the culottes, put on a tab of glue, and then we'll put on the jump rings. So when it's something as small as a culotte, I have a big pot of PVA glue. That's the lid of it, so you can see how big the pot is. So I will just get a little bit of the glue on the end of a cocktail stick and just dab it on the knot, and then with my fingers gently close up the culotte. Repeat for the other side. Close that up. Then with flat nose pliers, just push the culottes very nice and tightly closed. Pair of scissors, snip off the excess thread, and I close the hoop of the culotte with round nose pliers. Repeat on the other side. And I find it easier to close the culottes before I put the jump rings in. I'd far rather open up the jump ring than put it in with the culotte. So the jump rings then, find the gap, one pair of pliers on one side, one on the other, and twist away from each other to open up the gap. Put into the culotte, and because I want the clasp, I'm right-handed, so the clasp is going to be on the right-hand side. Put it on that side. If you're left-handed, put the clasp on the other side. Close it up, and then repeat with the jump ring on the other side. And there is your finished necklace, giving the illusion that the beads go down and through the actual pendant when it hangs. So there you go, there's our finished project with the beaded necklace. I hope you enjoyed that one. It was a nice simple one, as I say. It's just taking advantage of that Skinner blend, and I've just done you one example today with one colour selection. Obviously there are just so many colours you can have a go with this one. It'll look great, so just do it for whatever colours you like. I hope you enjoyed it. As I say, if you did, don't forget to tick like, and if you haven't already, then please do subscribe. It does mean so much when people subscribe to my channel, so thank you for all of you who've done that in the past, and I will see you next time. That's it for now. Thanks for watching. Bye.